Good afternoon. Today I'm speaking to Catriona King. Good afternoon, Catriona. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your books.
Hello, Donna. Thank you so much for inviting me on to have an interview with you. As you said, Catriona, that's right. You're the only person that's got my name right. Do you know that? Everybody calls me Catriona, or on the, on Windows, it always changes it to cartoon. So I always come up as cartoon on the Word documents. So I write crime novels, and I've been writing them since 2011. And I'm a doctor by background, and I did a little bit of forensic training during my medical work, and so it sort of sparked my interest in crime. And also I love the whole puzzle aspect of writing a detective story. So, making sure that you structure the story correctly so that you don't give too much away at the beginning, or you'll have told everybody who the killer is, but not teasing it out for too long or you'll bore people. So I write a crime series set in Northern Ireland. The headquarters of the detectives are in Belfast, but they cover crimes across the whole of Northern Ireland, and they're murder detectives. So all of the stories are murder detective stories, and it's called the Craig series, the Craig crime series. And I've just finished and released book 24 in the series, so there are a lot of books. So does that answer?
Yep. Did you always want to write?
I used to write when I was little, and I won a couple of prizes when I was very young for writing. But then, I come from a scientific family, and I was directed more into the sciences, although I was always very interested in literature. And of course, medical training, you're constantly studying, so you don't get any time to do anything else but study for your medical exams. But when I came out of medical school, I did work for a while as a health journalist for a GP publication, which was interesting, although that's very, very different to writing novels. It's very fast and topical, and I wasn't actually very good at that, because it required you to boil everything down into very short, sharp headlines, whereas I like to develop a story and to develop characters and give them their own little lives.
So what caused you to take the leap and go for it and write a novel?
I took some time out because my mum wasn't very well, and then sadly she died, and I thought, do I really want to go back into the, it wasn't just 9 to 5, it was 9 to 9, and it was, constant work, and even at weekends you were working, whether, I changed and I went into the sort of strategy side of health, but you were working on documents late at night, and I thought, I actually want to see if I can do this, if I can write this first book. And it was only ever going to be one book. I was just going to write one story, and then the publisher that I was with said that it was selling very well and that people liked it, and he said, would you like to write another one? And so I just kept on going, and then I just got very attached to the characters. So I sort of miss them if I'm not writing about them.
If you were going to write an offshoot, which characters would you choose?
Interesting, because I suppose the lead, there's a detective team, but the leader is a guy called Mark Craig, and he works with his deputy, guy called Liam Cullen. So it's very much a buddy relationship with the two of them. So you could actually take them out of the setting of Northern Ireland and send them somewhere else. Except Liam would never go on holiday. He doesn't like leaving his route. Or take the forensic scientist or the pathologist, John Winter, and he could have an offshoot. Or I think they would be the main characters that you could write an offshoot for. I think the more junior characters would struggle to find stories on their own unless they got promoted and were running their own squads. But I have found that in later books I've sort of written different books with focus on different characters. So the book before last focused on a DCI who's very artistic and had always wanted to work with the antiquities squad and the art fraud squad, and he ended up having a storyline that took him that way. And this most recent one, the analysts get quite a bit of coverage because there are two analysts on the team, and they get quite a bit of coverage. So I sort of expand the stories in that way.
Cool. If you were put into the team, who would you get on with best?
Well, I'm sure you'd have the best laugh with Liam Cullen because he's just outrageous. He's an outrageous character, but I like my lead character, Mark Craig, because he's very handsome and attractive. And also, there are two quiet members of the team. There's John Winter, who's a pathologist, who's quiet, and Andy Angel. I actually called him Andy Angel, is the artistic one, and he's quiet. So I'm sort of quite attracted to quiet personalities. So I think they would be the one.
Who inspired you growing up and who inspires you now as authors?
As an author, I used to read a lot when I was a child, and I read a lot of heavy stuff as well. I've read my way through a lot of the books that everybody thinks that you should read, and very often you get to the end of it and you think, well, I've done that now, but I really don't want to do that again. Once you think you should read them. But there was a guy called Leon Uris, who one of my older brothers was very into, and he's written some very good books, but they were written 40, 50, 60 years ago. So not a lot of people would think of them nowadays. But they're very good. Some of them are legal novels, some of them are historical novels. So he's one. And then I love the theatre. So I actually really like Oscar Wilde, and I think probably Sean O'Casey is one of the Irish playwrights. So I like to go and I like to see things rather than just sitting writing a book now. So I like to go to the theatre and watch. But unfortunately, at the moment, we can't do any of that. Although you can do it online. You can join theatre sites online. So I do that. But in terms of one of the classics who I think really deserves more coverage is Georges Simenon, who wrote the Maigret books. And they've been brought back on television, the Maigret novels. And they're short novels, but they're actually really good crime stories. So I think those. Nowadays, I think Ian Rankin, Val McDermid. Val McDermid actually it would be the number one. Some of the Scottish writers are just very good, but it's quite hard-boiled crime. It's not gentle crime. It's not an Agatha Christie type crime. So it really depends what sort of crime you're into, because even within crime, there are people who write hard, dark crime and others who write more easy reading crime. And I think my books are probably on the easy reading side, although they're murder novels. But I can't really judge. It's up to the readers to say where they think they fit. But Val McDermid, yeah, I think.
Yeah, popular choice. What's the most interesting thing you found out when you've been researching your books?
Oh, the forensic stuff is fascinating. One of the most interesting things was I was looking into for a book Bitcoin, which is a Bitcoin, you know what that is, it's an e-currency, and how some criminals had actually embedded data into their Bitcoin blockchains, thing called blockchains, which collects, it's basically a data chain, and they had embedded messages and they were communicating with each other. and I discovered it because I was just surfing the BBC website, and it came up on a BBC page, and I looked into it, and then I ended up using it in a storyline. Um, how criminals were actually getting data under the police radar by doing that. And there was another one called bartering, which is a system where criminals don't transfer money to each other. You know, like if I transferred money to you through a bank, it would be immediately detected. They run a system called bartering, where they pay you in possessions. So I owe you 10 Mercedes, 10 Learjets, 10, and this is actually going on at the moment. So it's not being picked up by the police. So I find that fascinating. You know, they're always looking for ways around. The more sophisticated the police detection techniques become, the more criminals are looking for ways around it.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know. I didn't know about the Bitcoin. That's really interesting and quite terrifying, I suppose.
It really is. You know, you don't even want to think about the things that they could be embedding in these data streams, but they're doing. Some of the international criminals in particular are very clever. Far too clever, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. Do you put any secret jokes or messages in your books that only a few people would understand?
No, but I think that people I know might recognize some of their own words. Because sometimes your friends will say quirky little things, quirky little expressions, and then they'll come back in it. You know, I'll have a character saying it. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but certainly, you know, family jokes or slang expressions. There's an expression in Northern Ireland, I don't know if it's the same in England, to say somebody is elephants. Have you heard that?
No.
Elephant's trunk means drunk. It's a rhyming slang. So somebody is elephants. It means they're drunk. And I know it's quite funny, but one of my friends said that to me, and I thought, oh, I have to make a character say that. So I think the comedian in the team, Liam Cullen, ended up saying that at one point. So yeah, I think there are things that people will recognise. You know.
And are any of your characters based on real people?
I think they're based on amalgamations, bits taken from lots of people. I mean, certainly the two lead detectives are very like two detectives that I actually knew in London. So, but I've altered lots of things about them, you know, so perhaps physically they resemble those detectives, but they don't resemble them personality wise, or their background's been changed. But yes, people always say, oh, which character are you? And that had never occurred to me, you know, that I would write myself into a book. It would never occur to me. But obviously, I think if you are, I think most like the lead character, who, you know, who's the Mark Craig, the lead detective. But then there'll be parts of friends of mine in Craig as well, and parts of friends in other characters as well. So you write what you know, basically, and therefore they will all be amalgamations of people that I've met in real life at some point. In the early days, when I was looking for character names, I actually ran little competitions, and people could get their character name written into the books. So there are some people whose names they won't recognise every time they open a book.
Yeah, people love that. I won a competition actually, so I'm looking forward to when that comes out. Finally, I've been dying for someone to do that for ages. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing.
So you'll be a character in a book?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. Are you a plotter or a pantser?
Oh yes, I I had never heard that word pantser before, till last week. Somebody who just sits down with a blank and writes by the seat of their pants. Yes, that's what I am. I can't plot. If I tried plotting once, and I could do it, but I got so bored by the end of the plotting that I didn't want to write the book anymore because it took all the joy out of it. Part of the joy of writing the book is you sit down with a blank page and you don't know what's going to come next. You don't know what you're going to write that day. I have no idea what I'm going to write that day. And then after I've written things, I mean, very often things will come to me. I mark them down on my phone or I write them on a piece of paper and I'll put them in next day. But you don't really have coherent, or I don't have a coherent plan. I'm always stunned by these people who have, post-it notes with different plots and things written all of them. It's just my hat's off to them, but I can't do it.
And what's the thing you love most about writing, and what's the thing you dislike?
I like the quiet, like the peace and quiet. I used to go so far as to actually put earplugs in so that it was absolutely quiet, but I don't do that now. I'm not quite that bad anymore. But it's peaceful. It's peaceful. You're not constantly being bombarded with noise or questions as you are in an office. Or what do I not like? Writing the first draft is really hard work. It's completely new. Everything is new. You're literally looking at a blank sheet of paper and creating something from it. So by the time you get to the end of the first draft, you're thinking, oh, nothing could be as bad as this again. And the second draft is much nicer because you're tweaking things and editing and moving. You often end up moving complete chunks of a book around. So it may have been near the middle and it ends up near the start or near the end because it fits a lot better. So the first draft is really hard. Very hard.
Are you friends with lots of other authors?
Online, yes. And I do know some locally that I've met if I've gone to a book festival. But they tend to I think that obviously the lockdown has put an end to a lot of that, and you have to be quite gregarious in to keep up with people, and I'm not really gregarious. So I prefer to watch people at book festivals, for instance, rather than present myself. I don't really like doing that. So I think there are a group of them who go from festival to festival and do that. And I've been invited to do quite a few things, and I say no because I just then I know that I'll get too nervous beforehand. I won't enjoy it. So why would you do something in life if you're not going to enjoy it?
Absolutely.
Unless it's work and you have to do it for work. Socially, why would you do it? And book festivals to me are quite harrowing. They're quite nerve-wracking. So
yeah. What's the funniest typo you've ever written?
oh gosh, I can't think off the top of my head, but I do. When I get tired, I notice the number of typos increase. That's how I know I need to finish writing for the day. When it just gets to the point where every third or fourth word is a typo, and then a sign that I'm really giving up is when I just do a row of asterisks and dollar signs, and I just give up at that point. I can't anymore. I'm tired. But my typing is not great. If I'm doing it too fast, I trip over it. So there's a lot of typos in the first draft. That's why I need 2 editors.
And what's the nicest compliment you've ever received?
I don't know. Goodness, that's really thrown me off now. Probably when I was 8 and I won a prize for the best story in class. So that's probably the best story. I mean, that's a very a very subjective view of what's the best story anyway, but my teacher obviously thought it was, and I liked her. So
do you get lots of feedback from readers?
I do, but I get reviews, but I'm not great about pushing for reviews, and I never go to book sites that, you know, a lot of authors will go to book sites requesting reviews, and I'm not very good at that. I'm not good at asking people for things. I do have a lot of readers who will message me and have become friends on Twitter and on Facebook, which is lovely, which is great. But I sort of, the odd time I will say, they'll message me and say, oh, I really loved that book. I said, could you write a review? But I never push it. So, but yes, I made some lovely friends, you know, so that's more important.
Yeah. When I that I was interviewing you, then it got quite a lot of interest quite quickly. So you must have some really lovely readers.
Oh, I have the best. They are lovely. They are really lovely. You know, they say such sweet things about the books, but also they're chatty and they're lively and they're, you know, and as I say, they come on and they'll follow me on Twitter and I'll follow them back, and then we'll end up finding out things about each other. So yes, they're lovely. They are.
Talking about your readers, quite a few of them wanted to ask some questions, so I'll ask them now.
Great, yeah.
So Jean Smith wanted to know, how did you have the first idea for Craig & Co?
Well, as I say, I started writing it when I was at a bit of a loose end after my mum had died, and I think I just wanted to tell this particular story. And the first book, which you've got some to give away, the first book has quite a bit of similarity. My mum's characters in there quite strongly. I also knew that I wanted to write about a modern Northern Ireland, and I didn't want to write about the Troubles, because people had 30 years of the Troubles, and you know, even if you didn't live in Northern Ireland, you'd heard about the Troubles in London or in wherever you were on the evening news all the time, and I didn't want that image portrayed. I mean, Northern Ireland now is just a normal place, and we have normal cities, so I wanted to write a modern one. And I thought, well, if I'm going to write about a lead detective, I'm going to make him someone who I would find attractive and who I want to write about. So he's a bit of a handsome hero. He's half he's half Italian and half Northern Irish, and there is quite a big Italian community in Northern Ireland who came over and intermarried, and so basically I just wanted to write this particular story. The first book was a particular story, and I thought, right, okay, he's going to lead the investigation, and it went from there. I didn't start with the detective in mind. I started with that story in mind, and he came out of it, and then his team came out of it. But there's a lot of I think there's quite a lot of humor in the books, and that was something I wanted as well, because it is a feature of people here. You know, there's a lot of humor. Some of it's quite dark humor, but there's a lot of humor, banter amongst people here. So, and in England, I mean, when I went to places like Middlesbrough and and Yorkshire, I mean, it's exactly the same sort of humor though. It's constantly insulting each other. You know, people constantly. The more you like someone, the more you joke with them. Really. So that's where it came from. Really, I think. Not sure if that answers that question, does it?
Yeah, I think so. And she also wanted to know what tools you use to remember plots, characters, running storylines. She's written with 22 books under your belt. It seems to be a monumental task.
It is, you know, and I don't have any tools at all. I met one author who was writing a series, and she had this wonderful grid that traced the development of each character and their birthdays. And what I do is I have a Dropbox, and I have all my books in there, and so I have a vague idea where things are in a particular book, and then I just have to search through the book when I need a particular piece of information. It's just my formatter is wonderful because she keeps the books in different formats, and one of the formats is a Word format, which makes it very easy to search for a particular thing. But yeah, no, I'm terrible. I don't have any grid.
I'm sure they'd soon call you out on it if you got a detail wrong anyway.
Oh yes, definitely. People bought the details, definitely. Long after I've forgotten the details, they pick them up. Yeah.
Yeah. I read JD Kirk's first book yesterday before I spoke to him, and I messaged him before I was due to interview him, and I said, you've got this detail about a car, that it's this certain registration you've mentioned twice, but when you're actually chasing it, it's a different registration. And he's like, I don't think anyone's noticed that so far in all the time. And that was his first book. So yeah.
See, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's very important in a crime story, because a little thing like that, readers will pick up on it very quickly, and it can ruin the flow of the book for them. So yes, no, that's great.
Yeah, I had to go back and check. I was like, I'm sure it was that, but now it's, and yeah, it's like, wow. Leslie Lloyd asked about the Troubles, which you've answered. Pauline Lomax wanted to know who your favourite character is, or if you're like a mum and you love them all equally.
I think I love them all equally. That's probably why I created them. I like John Winter, the pathologist, because he's quiet and very gentlemanly. He's sort of quite old-fashioned in that sort of, he has that courteous, old-fashioned gentleman type of thing. Although he isn't actually that old. None of the characters, I think the oldest character is 50 in the books. But he just has that way, and I like him. And Craig has it as well. Actually, he has a bit of that as well. But
and she also, sorry.
No, Pauline likes Liam Cullen because he's very funny.
Yeah. She wanted to know who your favourite criminal was and why.
Criminal. I think my favourite criminal was in the first book, because they only became a murderer for the sake of someone else. So I think there was no self-interest in it for them. It was for someone else. So I think that's my favorite criminal.
Verna wanted to know if your books were a song or songs, what would they be?
Probably the theme track to Northern Ireland, which would be Snow Patrol. Anything by Snow Patrol, or gosh, I can't. There's a new singer, and I can't remember his name, but there are some very good singers from here. But I think if it was a book, it would be. If it was a song, it would be an album by Snow Patrol, the one that has oh, I can't remember the name of the song now. That's I can't remember. There's Cars mentioned in it. And there's another band. Sorry?
Chasing Cars.
That's it. Yes.
One of my favourite songs ever. I love it.
Well, that's Craig listens to Snow Patrol in the books sometimes, but he also chasing cars is something police do as well, isn't it? But there's another group from the south of Ireland called Walking on Cars, and they have some brilliant stuff as well. So those two. And Hosier.
Oh, Hosier. Yeah, I love Hosier as well.
Yeah, fabulous. So they're always at the back of my mind when, but I can't listen to music when I'm writing because I can't concentrate.
No. Linda Checkley asked if you could meet any author, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oscar Wilde, because he was just so witty. He was just, and he had all these different aspects to him, because although his plays were comedies, there was an awful lot of sort of serious commentary underneath it. You know, in particular, he was always commenting on Victorian snobbery and the sort of hypocrisy of that society. So, but he did it in such a light-hearted way that people wanted to go and see the plays. It wasn't heavy, you know, but there was always a message there. So yeah, Oscar Wilde, definitely.
And then Pauline again wanted to know what you thought of the idea of a TV series.
Yes. Yes, please. I think it would lend itself very well to a TV series. I mean, you know, she says immodestly, but because it's written in scenes and there's a lot of dialogue in the books, so I think that, you know, when you have past books with a lot of description of countryside and things, that's a little bit harder to translate. Although I suppose you can translate it with an image quickly. But there's a lot of interaction, a lot of dialogue. There's a fair bit of action in the books. You know, say like chasing airplanes, chasing cars, shootouts, and this sort of thing. And it wasn't deliberate, but I do tend to write scenes. So, you know, there'll be an interaction in the office, and then there'll be an interaction in the lab. So I suppose that yes. Anyone's
Have you ever given any thought of who you'd like to play your main characters?
Oh yes. I think Jamie Dornan would be a brilliant Craig, but that's really pie in the sky. Or somebody else suggested Aidan Turner, but he is that sort of dark. He's that dark Irish Italian look. In my mind, he has a permanent stubble. You know, he's that sort of person. And Liam Cullen is excessively tall. I mean, he's 6'6". You know, well, not excessively, but it's, you know, considerably taller. Craig would be about 6'2", and the next one up is Liam Cullen. And he's so actors to play him would be Craig Parkinson, who's an English actor but could do the accent, I'm sure. And there's a guy, but he's on Waking the Dead. No, not Waking the Dead. Silent Witness. Cave, I think his name is. He's in Silent Witness, and he's very tall, and he is from Northern Ireland, actually. So, and you know, and there's a plethora of other actors. There's some young actors. There's some the analysts are in their 20s. You know, so there's a whole age range there, and then there's the secretary who is the PA, who's very funny, and I always imagine her looking like Denise Van Outen. That's the way I picture her in my mind. You know, so there's a whole range of people, but you know, pie in the sky at the moment.
But you never know, never say never.
Well, exactly. You live in hope, really.
All authors, apparently, every single one I spoke to lives in the same hope, so you're not alone.
In good company.
Yeah. If you were going to have any superpower, what superpower would you have?
I'd be able to speak any language in the world. That's I would love to be able to speak every language in the world. Imagine it. You know, you go to any country and speak fluently. It'd be wonderful, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. I'd like to be able to speak any other language apart from English, but there we go.
I know.
Just to start with.
If you go to the continent, if you go to Europe, anywhere, they all speak English plus their own language plus another language, you know, because they're taught at school. They learn about 3 languages, but unfortunately we don't.
No.
Well, we learn. I learned French, you know, a bit, and a bit of Spanish, but not enough to converse.
No.
You know, enough to buy a coffee. I can go in and have coffee. That's about it.
I don't even remember how to do that. I have no idea.
You would come back after a day or two.
Yeah, maybe. If you were going to invite 4 famous people to a dinner party, who would you invite?
Goodness. Oscar Wilde, Val McDermid. I think that would be a fascinating interaction between those two. I don't know, really. You could get into all of the big world peace figures, but then, which of those would you actually choose? How would you choose between Gandhi or Mandela or any of those people? You'd end up excluding someone. No, I'd just be me and Oscar Wilde and Val McDermid. That would be it.
Nice.
And somebody else doing the cooking.
Of course. What do you like to do when you're not writing?
I need to wind down sometimes after I've been writing for a long time, so I watch DVDs. And I do a bit of reading. I've just bought Leon Uris's books again, so I'm just starting one of those at the moment. I used to do a lot of music, a lot of singing, but obviously you can't do that now with the you can't go anywhere now. Other than that, I'm pretty boring. I do the odd bit of exercise, but I really have to psych myself up to get on the treadmill. It's not my see friends, and that's really it. See friends and family, and go out and meet people for coffee, and have the usual interactions. Go to a gallery, go to a museum, go to the theatre. That's a big one. Go to the theatre. We've some very good theatres here, and I really miss that. Actually, I really miss going to the theatre. And I used to go down to there's a theatre in Dublin called the Abbey in Dublin, which is very famous, and there's always something wonderful on, but you can't travel now. So.
Yeah. What's the last book that made you cry?
Books don't really make me cry. Children make me cry. If I see children on television now, they sort of make me cry. I don't know why. I think they're so vulnerable, and so that would be it. People make me cry, not a book. Because I've never met a writer who can really provoke that in me. It'd be great if you could, but I think real life makes me cry. I think there's, and I say perhaps I think I steer away from books that will make me cry. I don't like sad stories because there's enough sadness in the world, and I've seen quite a bit of it as a doctor, and I just think, what, I want to read something funny or silly, or maybe a detective story that will engage me, but I don't want to read something awful or sad because there's enough of it on the news.
Yeah. One of my favourite authors is Tony Forder, and he writes a series with Detective Bliss, and 3 books in a row made me cry, and it was worse because I wasn't expecting it, because they're crime, and he's got humour in his books, but yeah, 3 in a row made me cry. And he found it highly amusing.
And yet you want to keep on reading it, so you must enjoy a little cry.
I wouldn't say enjoy, but yeah.
There was enough in the book to engage you, to make you want to go back. So.
Oh yeah, his books are great, so I would read them, but yeah, I've still not forgiven him.
For making you cry.
Yeah.
It's interesting because as a writer, you don't know how you have no idea how your books are going to make the reader feel. You can tell a story, and you can try to create a mood in your story, and every single reader will read it differently. There is no uniformity to the way people react, because what always fascinates me is if somebody comes back to me and says, "Oh, I really like that character," and I think, "Oh, I don't really like them, but they really like that person," or "I don't really like this character," and it's somebody that I really like. So we're all so different. The idea that you can do something that and know what it's going to make the reader feel I think is impossible. So, but it's a testament to him being a good writer that he managed to provoke that in you.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a compliment for him.
Yeah. Yeah, he just laughed as well, so. Yeah, we say he's got no heart, but he has really. It's lovely.
That's, that is something that people ask you, how can you write about such awful writers? You must be an awful person. And you think, oh God, I didn't think I was that person. I think they need, perhaps you write about crime, you don't actually commit crime. Writers don't go out and commit the crime so they can write about it. and to us, it's just a little story in our heads. It's just, and for me, it's more about writing a puzzle. It's how can I tell a story without giving away. I know who the killer is, but I don't want to give that away to the person who's reading the book until late in the book. So it's about that puzzle for me. I don't think there's been an instance of a writer going out killing people.
There's a book in that.
God, I hope not.
Every author I've spoken to is absolutely, yeah, everyone's lovely, so I'm sure it doesn't happen. Hopefully. So what's next for you?
In what way?
In your writing, what books and what have you got planned?
Oh, sorry, what's next for me? Sorry,
Yeah.
I misheard that. Well, I started the next book in the series, which will be book number 25. So I'm really torn about whether or not to make that the last one for a while, or to change genre. I did write a science fiction book a few years ago, and that's a genre that interests me as well. And I wrote a little fantasy book, but that was mainly for my family members, so I gave that to them. But I always think I should try writing a romance, except that romantic novels always make me laugh, which probably isn't the way you're supposed to go about writing romance. So at the moment, I'm a third of the way into writing the next book, really, and it's I'm at the stage where I think I have no idea where this is going or what's going to happen next. So it's interesting. But other than that, everything is on hold, as I say, things like festivals and appearances and all of that. Nobody's doing anything at the moment because of the thing. I was asked to give a talk to the University of Berkeley in California. But I'm sort of thinking about that one at the moment, but I probably won't, because they'll want me to appear on Zoom. I don't think they accept me doing voice only interviews, but so.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions for you, unless there's anything that you think that I haven't asked you that you want to tell everybody.
No, I just think I would tell everybody, thank you very much, Donna, for inviting me. I think you're doing a great thing supporting writers. It's really hard for writers to get out there, and I think you're doing a great thing for us. So thank you very much. And everybody should follow Donna's page, definitely. And good luck with your forensics studies.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to need it, I think.
It'd be great. Fingers crossed you get that finished this year.
Yeah. And then just finally, before we go, do you want to tell everybody where they can find out more about you and your books?
Well, I'm on Amazon. The books are all on Amazon. So it's Amazon everywhere. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. And I also have a website, but it's down at the moment, getting some work done to it. But that will be going back up soon. And that's really it.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thanks to everybody for listening and for sending in all the lovely questions. Thank you so much. Bye.